title slide. Hey, I'm FuzzyNop. Thank you. I'm here to present Embrace the Bogeyman, tactical fear-mongering for those who penetrate. Now, we may be asking ourselves, what's a boogeyman? So I Googled it, and I found this definition here. And I actually like the second one a bit more. And it says, a person or thing that is widely regarded as an object of fear. Now, keep this definition in mind as we go through and we talk about things. So, why am I giving this talk? Really, I care about this stuff a lot. And I've seen this a lot, and I've seen a lot of things in the industry, and I wanted to express what it's like to be that person who has this internal red team job where your boss basically just says, cause an impact, move the needle. And if you've seen my talks before, I've talked about things, and I've talked about techniques and stuff we've used on the job, and I never really talked about what happens. So this brings me to how, and this is just like a rhetorical slide, because I was going to say, well, how about we get along with the rest of the talk? I know, it's fucking bad. So, if you've seen one of my talks before, I may have mentioned this black swan theory. And black swan theory, it's this idea that Nassim Nicholas Taleb came up. He's a behavioral economist. And he basically says that black swan theory, or theory of the black swan, it's an event, it's a metaphor for events that describes something that happens, it comes as a surprise, it has a huge and major effect, and then it's often inappropriately rationalized after the fact, with the benefit of hindsight. So essentially what he's saying is that something happens, and it's big, and then everyone, because this thing just happened, thinks it's way more likely to happen. And they base their decisions around it. And this doesn't quite capture that, but the other part of that is that it changes your behavior and the way you make decisions going forward from there. And because these big things happen, you then go through your life and make decisions, and you do it differently. You even subconsciously. Something happened, and because it happened, you feel it's more likely, right? The big, super easy, decade-old example is the 9/11, right? If you ask someone the day before, like, hey, how likely is this to happen? They're like, America, this never happened. And it happens, no one wants to fly. Like, it's weird. Like, the likelihood of it happening is probably less now because it just happened. But everyone thinks that's now more likely to happen because it's in their mind. So for organizations and for companies that you might work for, whether you're a third party or you're internal, they have fears, right? And they have these events that they're worried about. And if you ask them, what is the organization's greatest fear? They don't normally say the next SSL downgrade attack with a fancy name. They don't say things like Heartbleed is our greatest fear. That is not the case. The real case, with a mature security organization, at least one that's already been thinking about things and they have a lot of valuable things to protect, they normally say the unknown unknowns, right? They know stuff, and they know that they don't know many things, and they're working on fixing those things that they don't know. But everyone knows that there's something out there that's just going to blindside you. And that thing that blindsides you, it's like this itch that you cannot scratch. And that is the organization's greatest fear most of the time. And they're always like, man, something is going to get us. We're not going to see it. We're going to be embarrassed. We're going to be publicly shamed, and it's going to be the end of us. So that itch that can't be scratched, I find myself in the middle of it. Right? I find myself being a tool to scratch that itch. And the punfully inclined are probably out there thinking, oh, do you mean abrasion as a service? And no, I don't mean ass. I mean something different. I mean red teaming. Because red teaming, even though it's not a perfect concept, it's not something that comes in and finds everything. It's more of a depth first rather than a breadth first type of attack. It's something that sort of lets you feel like you've discovered one of those unknown unknowns. It allows you to blindside yourself. And because of this, you come in and you attack everything. You create this black swan cataclysmic event for an organization, and you lay it down, you're like, hacks. And everyone's like, oh my God, this just happened? And suddenly the pen test you just did just proved the possibility, right? Because there was probably some executives walking around saying things like, X could never happen to us. And you're like, hey, X just happened to you. How do you feel about that? And now that that possibility is real, that possibility will push priority in a pretty amazing way. Suddenly these executives who are like, well, thank God that that terrible cataclysmic event wasn't real. We better prioritize these things because much like the Black Swan event, they're way more likely to happen. In reality, they're just as likely to happen as they were the day before. But now that it feels like it just happened, they think it's way more likely. And they prioritize things. And they prioritize... This is so hot. It's good. Thank you. I'd much rather party than give a talk right now. So back to little D here. It's great that the new possibility of something happening and the new and improved priority and thought that it's likely to happen will actually get things done. People will be very concerned about breaking the kill chain that you just laid out in front of them. Oh, God. Morty. It's awful. DerbyCon with his good traditions, very good. And getting things done is good, right? Fixing a kill chain that definitely existed before that you couldn't get anyone to pay attention to, now they pay attention to it, and they break some of those chinks in that, it's good, right? Suddenly, the attack surface is harder. The company you're trying to provide a service to or trying to protect from the inside is now has one less way to rock them, to ruin them. So I say, embrace the boogeyman. Pen test like it's real. Embrace the fear. Use it to get things done. We can use the fear of pen test and the way the media is currently portraying us as these godlike super cyber slayers that everyone's afraid of. We're in the news, and it's not like we're underground anymore, right? And companies recognize this, and you can use that political capital to actually get things done and not just, stunt hacking and stuff. So this is an example of something that really happened, right? Red team exists within the company. We do these events. And one day I'm not on the floor I work on. I'm just walking around, and I see this thing, and this is on a wall. This is a picture that's printed out and pasted on a wall. And in this picture is someone who left their computer unlocked. We know how that goes, right? It's sometimes everyone's got the game they play with other people in the security industry. If you leave your computer unlocked, they get in and they, commit you to sex acts or felonies or bringing in donuts or something like that. But this happened organically outside of the security organization, somewhere else, and they have this sticky note on someone's computer, and it says, "Lock your computer. The red team will get you. Trust no one," just for added effect. Trust no one. And this was not the only picture on this wall. They were building their own wall of shame to try and protect themselves from the red team. And it's not really, you'd sort of like it if everyone out there was worried about real attackers and worried about the real unknown. But the fact that you've labeled the unknown and someone can come get them and they have the political freedom to do so, suddenly people are afraid, and behaviors might change from this. So it was, it warmed my heart. But what if your boogeyman is 404? There's probably a lot of cases where you're at a company or you're working for a company and this, you can't do something like this. And I wish I had a really good thing. I'd be like, come to the dark side. We can do this together. We can create boogeymen everywhere. And we have cookies. Dark chocolate. Although, seriously, I drew all these on an iPad, and I'm pretty proud of this one. I mean, yeah. Anyways, it is possible to build it if you don't have it already. You can build the boogeyman, right? There's a case to make for this. Organizations need this. Even if you're an external party, right? You can say, hey, look, I'm here to do a pen test for you, and you've scoped it so that you're not really getting any value out of it. Like, why are we doing this? Maybe there's someone on the inside that really believes in doing the right thing and not just getting a pen test to check some, rubber stamp boxes. I believe a good friend of mine, Savant, called this pretenditration testing. So let's not do that. Yeah. So there's a couple things that are really important if you need to be able to build this. You need these things to really be able to create this kind of internal fear catalyst that can push needles when they need to. And the first is you need freedom of operation. And it's a hard sell. It's not an easy thing to get people to agree to. And as an internal red team, I constantly fight a battle to keep the freedom that we have. So when you build it, you build freedom into it. You don't allow yourself to be burdened by frivolous scopes and things like that. Take the scope out of it. Say, the scope is that we will attack any systems, any humans, anybody within the organization to accurately simulate the threat adversaries that you face out in the real world. Executives will be like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And maybe you'll get that freedom. And if you get it, you fucking hang on to it. And you need the ability, because if you think about it, any adversary that would want to target you, think 13-year-old kid in his mom's basement is like, it'd be pretty cool to be able to print myself some gift cards or be able to download games for free. He's going to be like, he's not going to need to get approval on a phishing email he sends. He's going to be able to crank as many out as he can. He's going to be able to come up with whatever idea he wants. He'll be able to target anybody in the company. So you should be able to operate the same way. If you want to accurately simulate a pen test, if you want to accurately simulate what you might be facing out in the world, you need the freedom to do so. Then the second is impact. You need the ability to actually shake things up, right? This isn't a report that you lay on someone's desk. Because if it's just that, they have the choice to read it or not. You need the ability to, first, you need a clear goal. Right? You can't cause an impact by going and dumping Active Directory. So what? What does that mean? Nothing. It's just, you're like, oh, we took Active Directory. Well, did you crack the passwords? Did you use them? What did it get you? Or were you able to actually cause damage to the company? You don't see in the news, Lizard Squad dumps Active Directory. No. You see, so-and-so compromises X number of credit cards, X number of user accounts. Such and such Twitter page is now tweeting, security tay-tay instead of what it used to be tweeting. Right? Things have to change. People have to see it. And you need to know what you're going after. So you need a clear target, and you have to have something in mind that you're trying to achieve. It's not just hacking for hacking's sake. It has to have a goal. It has to have a purpose. You have to say, I am trying to get this part of the organization to move, to shift. I'm trying to move this needle from here to here, and I'm going to make sure that in my attack, I hit the right numbers, I hit the right notes to actually move that needle in a direction. I'll tell you some real stuff about that later. It's going to get dirty. And then the last one is maturity. And I don't mean being a mature person, because look at me, obviously not. I don't mean that. I mean operational maturity. A lot of times it's red teaming is all about who has the leadest hacks, who has the O-days. It's not about the O-days. It's about being able to operate efficiently, because you're never going to know everything. You're never going to have every piece of the puzzle that you might encounter. There's always going to be new technology coming out. It is not about how elite you are. It's about how quickly you can mobilize, operate, and do the things you need to do in an environment. You need to be able to have as little friction as possible in spinning up, conquering something new, and not having to think reporting, right? Reporting is normally a terrible burden. Automate it away. Make reporting as easy as possible. Make spinning up C2 as easy as possible. Make writing new malware as easy as possible. That way you can focus on the things that you don't understand when you bump up against them. It's not just about playing the same old tricks, it's about bumping up against something new and being able to grab it and tackle it and say, okay, we don't have to worry about all this other bullshit. Instead, we can focus on figuring out how this thing works and figuring out how we can use it to actually achieve something and achieve our goal and cause that impact. So all of that was a lot of fluff. And that fucking ice is like ripping up my insides, guys. I've talked about poning people personally before. I've talked about this. If you haven't seen it, it's basically the idea of super targeted doxing and building dossiers on people, and then super targeted spear phishing, and then super low effort, high impact post-exploitation stuff. And everyone's like, wow, that's cool, that's neat, cool tricks. But what I never really got to talk about, because it hadn't happened yet, is what is the impact when you do that to an organization over and over? A lot of things that happen when you are a team that operates and you get on people's systems and you steal their password and you read their email and you use their account all over the place and you trick them into bypassing their 2FA, there's a lot of things that happen. And the first thing is immediately there is an instinct fear of being a target that develops within people. People don't want to be the next person in the red team slides when we talk about what we did. And this ripples out, and people are so afraid that things will happen and they'll be like, oh, I know you, like get in the elevator, and they're like, you're not going to my floor, are you? What, I work here, like what do you mean? He's like, I don't know, I don't want to get hacked by the red team. It's like, wow, that's a pretty awkward elevator ride to get into work, but okay. They're so afraid actually that I'll request access for something to do my job, right? I have normal parts of my job that isn't just like, stunt hacking all the time, right? I have parts of my job, I'm like, I need access to this thing so that I can, give feedback to it, right? I can contribute, be a good company boy. And they're like, you're red team. We don't want to share that information with you. You're going to use it against us. Yeah, okay, well, fair enough, I guess. And I actually, when I first interviewed for this job that I had, someone asked me during the interview process, like, how do you deal with knowledge taint? Knowledge taint. I'm like, yeah, like you're supposed to be a red team hacking this company, but you work here. You know things that, you shouldn't know. Like, well, you want me to be better than everyone else, right? How are we going to do that? I think knowledge taint's good. I should know things that the real adversary doesn't. And then the way that we make that pristine so that people aren't like, you guys cheated, is that you build the kill chain out fully every time. Even if you know where the jewels are, you don't go for them. You find out where you would find out that they are. And then you go, you say, and when you present your findings, it's, okay, we got this guy's account through a public dump. We logged in as him. We went straight for the information docs like repository. We went for their Confluence or something. We read everything. We found passwords here. We found that you said all your important stuff is in this database here. And here's the proof that we found it there. And then we went after it. And when you build that whole thing out for people, there's nothing they can say. So that's probably important as an external pen tester, and it's definitely really important if you're an internal red team. That's the one thing that has kept us from being discredited as cheaters, essentially. And they're also so afraid that it's not just you. It's people you work with or they associate you with. They're like, you're going to sell secrets to the red team. We're not going to give you root on these boxes. Like, we don't do that. It's like, no. The distrust is real, and it's kind of counterproductive. I hope that it's worth it. And in the end, you realize that people are so afraid of you, and there's this air of fear, and that's the moment that you realize that you just became the boogeyman. You didn't think going into it that you would be, but at a certain point, you're like, damn, like people see me as an object of fear. And this has reaching effects for you, right? It's something that you see people use you as a tool, as an object. They use you to get political capital. They use it to get things done for good sometimes. Usually, sometimes they use it where they're like, could the red team say that it's cool? I'm like, no, we don't sign off on things. We're not security review. We're the Bogeyman. But they want some kind of stamp. And you say, oh. Now, one of the super obvious things that happen is that there's an immune response because you are damaging an organization. You are going in and you are causing trouble and you're causing chaos. You're basically making them very ill, and they feel very ill in the middle of a red team exercise typically. And this is good. This is a good part of it. You want that. You want it so that the immune system kicks in, and they fight you off, and they become better for it. And they level up, right? Because the idea that you would come back the next year and they would be susceptible to the same illness, to the same thing that got them before, that is failure. And I believe this like really passionately, really strongly. If you're one of those people out there, I'm sorry in advance, who has bragged and boasted, like, yeah, we got in like old hacks, easy stuff. We came back next year, we did the same thing. They suck, ha ha. You failed. What was the purpose of the penetration test? I mean, maybe it wasn't your fault, but that's failure. As an industry, that's failure for us. If we've come in and we've hacked something and we're like, look, you got hacked, and we came back the next year and the same thing happened, what was the point in doing it in the first place? We accomplished nothing. So we have to focus on that, and we have to make sure that the people we're giving things to focus on that. It's hard. Now, the not so obvious thing is that there's a fear immune response, and this is probably only an internal red team thing here. But suddenly the red team was scary at a certain point. But then after a bit, people adjust, right? They get used to the fact that there's this thing. And suddenly, people are like, oh shit, are we hacked? And I get an email that says, is this you guys? And it's not because they are like, yeah, we found you, but it's because they want to breathe that sigh of relief. Like, oh, it's just the red team, thank God. Now, that's a kind of good, I guess, that they're all about it and they're looking at things, but it's also kind of bad because it's hard to cause an impact when if they figure out that it's the red team, they aren't on high alert anymore. You want all hands on deck. You want them to think it's real. So as a red team, we write tooling, and our tooling now is attributable to us, and we're tracked like a real threat actor. Because, we cause pain to the organization, we cause chaos, we cause incidents, and we are treated like a real adversary. And, you get it in the elevator and you get it in from an organizational perspective. There's a metric on us from our blue team on like, we're tracking these threat groups and we're listed there. It's like, these guys from Romania, these guys from Turkey, red team, like we're right alongside them. There is no delineation between us and the bad guys. We are the bad guys. But that fear immune response is like, we're one that's okay, because they know that we aren't going to dox them on Twitter or Pastebin or somewhere like that. So, I don't know, what do you do? Maybe you dox them on Twitter or Pastebin or something. Hint. This road isn't perfect. It's not without mistakes. And so this is a little goatee, and he has a goatee. Who here, raise your hand if you're like, stunt hacking, done that. Anyone do some stunt hacking? Stunt hacking? You ever like, pull out a little hack, be like, bam, like little like one-liner bash script, and it does something like hilarious, and you're like, yeah. And everyone's like, that's hilarious. Like the hotel lobby computer type of thing. Yeah, I know I didn't see a lot of hands, but I know you all have done that, okay? So it's a little bit of a pitfall when you're an internal red team, because So here's what we did. We had this problem. You've seen it in the earlier slide. People they don't lock their computers. They don't care. And it's hard. Anyone can walk up to a system that's got access to everything and just sit down and do. It takes 2 seconds to curl something into bash and have a shell on that system that's persistent. So, all right, fine. And this was a really heated thing because they put this group right next to our team on the floor. They were like 10 feet away. And they were the worst at this. They really, and we'd confront them about this, and we'd say guys, lock your computer, come on, we've got guys over here and they will take advantage of you. And they're like, no, why? I'm like, well, fine, we'll show them. So for about a week, we just, at any time we'd see an unlocked computer, drop an SSH key that we can use later, and then collect maybe 20 or 30 systems, and then on Friday, we do this script. And what it does, SSH is in, connects, it makes their computer say, are you going to leave your computer unlocked again? And it makes their volume maximum, and it opens up a couple YouTube links. One of them is goats that scream like humans. The other one is NCIS, we've been hacked. Right? So you hear the guys 2 people typing on the keyboard, we've been hacked! What do we do? Goats are screaming, people are getting hacked, it's chaos. And the other one's probably some kind of dance track or something, I don't remember. And then it just loops, and it just does this indefinitely, and it doesn't even wait that long. So it's popping up 100 Chrome tabs with this. And it doesn't stop. There's no end to it. People's computers are crashing. So we're well, it's time. It's Friday at 5 o'clock. Click. And then you're just sitting there, and then across the room you're, ah! And we think it's hilarious. Not everyone thought it was so hilarious. Now, it's Friday, it's 5 o'clock, it's a pretty safe time. Except, boss's boss rolls in, he's like, whatever you're doing, stop it right now. I'm like, yeah, okay, okay. But this is a loop, it's still happening. You can't really stop it. And it turns out that some senior director is giving a presentation and his computer is going ape shit, goat shit, with chaos. And it's super embarrassing for him, and it's bad, right? It's stunt hacking, and it's a prank, right? We pulled a prank because of a crime of opportunity. Now, this didn't have the effect we wanted. People didn't start locking their computers suddenly. What happened is this team doesn't sit there anymore. But they probably still don't lock their computers, just somewhere further away from us. And it's because we pulled a prank. And there's a difference between a prank and propaganda. Propaganda is calculated. It has a goal. You can't just stunt hack and expect people and laugh about it and expect people to change the behavior in the way you want. Just because you get it doesn't mean that they're going to get it. You have to really think, this is social engineering at scale. You have to think about what's going to happen when we hack stuff and people find out about it. Thought I was about to get iced again. I got really nervous. There's a difference between prank and propaganda. So let's be real. Let me tell you, I've talked hypothetically a lot, and that was kind of one example. This is probably where I get in trouble. Okay, so imagine that you work in a large company, and like any large company, you know that there's probably one group out there who's just the worst. They're like, yeah, we care about security, but then they just do everything wrong, and they care about speed and scale way more than they care about security. And normally, it's from my experience, I've seen a lot of insides of companies. It's most frequently a DevOps group or something like that. These guys are like, we got to build stuff now. And you're like, yes, but you should build it security. No, we'll do that later. We got to build stuff now. And these guys got access to everything, right? They got SSH keys that just let them move anywhere. They do things like make little back doors for themselves so they can just jump into prod, and they can't be bothered with 2FA. That's slow them down. They got to deliver, right? So imagine, just hypothetically, that there's a group like this out there. So we have these problems we've talked about, right? One is like, if the red team's attributed, people don't really get so scared anymore. So we decide that we're gonna pull a clever ruse. We are going to really just own everything. We are going to abuse, because it's propaganda, the problem area. We're gonna say, we know these guys are doing some stuff. We're gonna use their back doors. We're gonna jump into prod. We're gonna make sure we use certain people's accounts. We are gonna really target the right people that we know are part of the problem, right? Because we want them to hear us. We want them to listen. It's not just a random prank. It's something that we want certain people to be on board with us, and we want them to understand the impact. So as part of our ruse, we're like, well, it'd probably be pretty cool if we got hacked by Russia. So let's just retool everything. We're going to write new malware. We're not going to make it look like the stuff that we've done before. And we're going to put Russian character strings in our binaries. We're going to do things like compile it on a Russian Windows system. And we're going to try and look like we're going to use all Russian IPs and maybe some China for good measure. And they'll be like, that's the Russians going through China. And we're going to do everything we can. Like, we're going to really try and simulate something that's not us, which is, by the way, a lot of extra work. So at a certain point, like, here's the TLDR. We slaughtered them. It was abysmal. And we took everything. And we didn't, we exfilled everything too. We encrypted it, don't worry, but we took everything. This is your front page cataclysmic event. And we made it look like Russia as much as possible. And we were hoping we'd sort of get caught in the act. And they'd be like, oh, they freak out. And then we were like, maybe we could ransom the executives. We could be like, look at the data we have, give us 1 million Bitcoin. And then just let them sweat it out and see what happens. And I was in meetings for a week trying to be like, hey, can we do this? And they're like, no, we have to build bridges and things like that. We can't do this to these people. They're going to blame all of security. I'm like, okay, well, what if we ramp up our attack and ramp up the visibility until we get caught? And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, that sounds reasonable. So I interpreted that as the ability to SSH to every system that we have access to, which I didn't say that it was every system in prod, but and I'm not saying that it was, but maybe it was. And the wall command is probably good enough here, hypothetically. And if you took that and you just translated the hacker's manifesto into Russian and popped that in there, probably with a pastebin link, just kind of ominous, that has a date at the top of it and nothing else. And then you said, skoro, soon, in Russian. And you say, everything will be revealed. Right? It's kind of ominous, but it's kind of true, too. We were going to reveal that it was just a test. I was going to update the link later and say, this is just a test. And, but we wanted them to think that we were going to dump everything. And we wanted them to know that we had access to everything. So I didn't, we could have done this better, right? So pastebin will take down a link, for no reason. Blue team's oh, shit, this seems bad. Pastebin, remove it. Pastebin's K, delete. Oh, that was my way to tell you that it was a test. So things weren't going as planned anymore. We're well, we'll double down. We'll use the first guy we phished, and we're going to get into his single sign-on account. We're going to use the internal messaging platform, and we're just going to start posting these Ukrainian threat group pictures and just threats basically from his account. And our blue team is just deleting them as fast as possible, and we're just fuck you, and posting them everywhere, trying to get as much visibility as possible. And so what ends up happening is that we'll get some stuff shut down, and we'll be nah, we still have access, and we'll show that we have access over here. And really, the butthole pucker level of everybody is tightening to we could go to space, it'd be fine. Air gap is solid. People are sweating. There was a lot of negative fallout. We made some guy miss his like Broadway show. And some other guy like got his computer, like, you know, Gestapo seized. They were like, we need your computer, it's posting things. And he's like, I don't know what's going on. So, and it was just, you know, we ruined his workday. And then one guy went to the hospital. And they blame us for that, which it seemed like incidental, you know, maybe stress level and something. But yeah, now we're still hearing about that, how we sent someone to the hospital. Yeah, it's awful. But, you know, so we have to get caught. So we allow this to go on for 48 hours, and we just go to the bar and, like, go off the grid. And we're like, constant messages. Is this you guys? Seriously, tell me. Like, hey, we're out drinking. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's Friday night. Sorry, we used the weekend to do this. And we let everyone sweat 48 hours. And on Monday, like, okay, it's us. It's us. And there were tears. There were literal tears. People were like, oh, my God. Like, executive leadership team thought we were really owned. And they didn't get to say, like, red team, and they had to sweat it out for 48 hours. Now, the result of this is pretty good at first. I mean, this is good, right? This is a propaganda opportunity, right? You've got a lot of eyes on this. A lot of the company has seen it. A lot of the people who are the ones who are your original problem are like, I care now. You made me care. I care now. So we leveraged this opportunity. We made shirts. We made this shirt, actually. And this has no company branding on it at all. It's just a shirt with a Soviet bear with deal with it glasses. And everyone's like, yeah, give me one of those shirts. That's awesome. And I'm like, this is a shirt of your shame, by the way. You know, this is a shame shirt. And I see these all around San Francisco now. It's awesome. I've got like a box of these shirts, and they're like, you want a shirt? And I'm like, yeah, it's awesome. And people are using this throughout the company, right? We have other people who are like, yeah, we're going to print Post-it notes that have the little Soviet bear on it, and it's like, lock your computer, the consequences are unbearable. I'm glad you guys like a good pun. Normally it sounds more like, oh, but I'm like, that reaction was awesome. And you know, people we cloned badges to get into the building because we kind of just wanted a quick win. And I mean, you know, sorry, iClass for that. But so we were like, well, we need to do something about that. So I contacted a vendor. I'm like, hey, can you make us badge shields that prevent people's badges from being read? And like, can you also custom print a graphic on them? So we got badge holders with this, because you don't put your company logo on badge holders. You put, you know, this. So you put your shame on it. You're like, you wear that shame, and you know that you're protected. Yeah. So I don't know. I didn't really get to this slide, but it was like this, I guess. I don't know. I'm missing my speaker notes, so it's not going as fluid as I'd like, and I'm full of hot, bubbly ice at the moment. It's longer than I thought. Oh. Okay. Yeah, so I stopped using the slides and just started talking. So it sort of sounds like red teaming and penetrating and fear-mongering is everything, and it's not, right? You could do this, and you could have this cataclysmic fallout, and without support from your organization, you need the executives to go play Game of Thrones for you. You need project managers to harass the people to fix the list of things that you gave them. You need all of this to work together, and you have to keep fighting for it. It's a battle, right? You have to keep saying, like, this is important. We need to do this. Remember D-Day? Remember the apocalypse that other day? Remember Bruce Willis on that asteroid? Like, it matters. We need to keep working on it, and you have to keep trying, right? So it's not really a one and done, and it's hard, but you need support from everybody, and you need to get people to buy into this idea that this stuff works. And it is possible to get things fixed, and especially the easy wins. People will fix them, and they will try. So.
You don't want to miss a thing.
You're like an arrow wordsmith down there. That's amazing. All right, that is the end of my talk. Are there questions? Okay, bye. Oh, sorry.
So, how long has it been since you had the bear apocalypse?
God damn it. It's been a year. Actually, can we cut the video feed now? Cool.